Oh, hey, Soul Sisters. We are back with another episode, and today we are joined by our soul sister, Amira. Amira is a hypnotist and event planner, and she has an amazing story you do not want to miss. Welcome, Amira.
Thank you.
And Whitley's here too.
So yeah, Amira, I want to just jump in and ask the question, what are some of the experiences that you have had in your journey and how has it shaped the person that you are today?
For me, my biggest kind of life-changing experience was I had a brain cyst removed when I was like 21. And so my life was kind of rush, busy, chasing God knows what. I was just super busy with my life before that. And then after the surgery, everything that was fixed before all of a sudden felt fluid. And so my life just kind of totally changed. I moved to Maui, didn't know anyone, and just kind of figured it out and followed what made me happy. And I think with doing events and stuff like that, like for me, it's kind of creating that opportunity of being somewhere completely different, maybe around people you've never even met before. So you can just find out what's inside you. And so that you can feel at peace inside without having a bunch of people asking things of you or holding you to who you're supposed to be. As a mom, as a daughter, as a friend, as a whatever, like these retreats are kind of this magical container where we just get to go, breathe, feel, and reveal ourselves to each other and connect on that. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing was moving somewhere far away and, just figuring it out was, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that life before the brain cyst?
Yeah, it was madness. I had 7 jobs. I was chasing a modeling career, and then I was throwing off my heels to go work in Red Robin, like a burger restaurant. And then I was rushing to my massage job, and then I worked in a chiropractic clinic, and every hour of my day was spoken for. And I kind of also felt like life was something to compete with, like everything felt like I just had to bring my all, and I had to have this energy of just, do as much as possible all the time. If there's any hours available, work, save up. And then, and it was more of a, I guess, popularity contest in my head of like trying to be the top person in my circle rather than trying to be connected. And so with the surgery, it was just like a total just shock to my system, and nothing I was doing before made any sense. So when I went back and I would hang out with the cool kids and they came up to me and they're just like, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you. Let's take a picture," or something. And I was just sitting there. I couldn't show expressions for 3 months. So I just sat back and I was like, "What? No, this feels so bad. Oh, but she's smiling, but it feels so bad." Like I just couldn't connect to that energy of pretending. And I found that living in Seattle, I looked around my world and it was a lot of pretending. It was a lot of people just kind of making small talk and like nothing felt real. So I went to Maui and I went to stay with a friend of mine, and he said he had this guy sleeping in his car right outside his house. And he's like, "I gotta get rid of this guy. He smells this, that, whatever." And I just thought he was so interesting. So I went outside and made friends with him. And it was such a different thing to do, to go from like modeling and chasing the cool kids or whatever. And then to just be like, this guy lives in a car and he's the most interesting man I've ever met. Just as a friend. But it was very like, it was just refreshing to me to have someone say something real and to just witness real connection. Like there's not a lot of fear in Hawaii. So when we parked and someone wanted us to move the car, we just gave them the car keys. Like, yeah, go move it, And where would you do that in a city? Like I'd never experienced that kind of trust. So I just went on a quest, like looking for what's real, I guess.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like to me, like I hear you went through like almost like an awakening and almost like an unraveling. And I'm super curious too, because you talked about the surgery, and then it was like afterwards things started to shift for you. And I'm really just curious because I'm like, I want to dive in a little bit deeper. Like what was what was that catalyst within that surgery that just kind of like pushed you into the space of like really questioning your reality and stepping into who you truly are.
Yeah, I think I didn't know the quest I was on. It's kind of like anything. Like we go through hard times or confusing times, and we're just wondering we might just stay this weird, but then at some point later it makes sense. So after the surgery, I spent a year in Seattle trying to remember everything, remember inside jokes, remember people. And I was constantly running into people I didn't recognize. And it was so overwhelming because I could tell that it was disappointing for them when I would say, or I would sometimes try to pretend I was like, hi, but I'm a bad liar. It was like really awkward. And then one girl came up to me and she's like, that guy reminds me of our college professor. And I just looked at her and I was like, I went to college? Okay. I didn't know, and I felt like, yeah, like basically when they work on stuff in the brain, there's just certain pathways that aren't linked yet, and that doesn't mean it won't ever get linked. But initially, there's a lot of things that are just kind of, like you rip the spider web out of the web and things are just messy. It hasn't reformed.
So you went back to the beginning of who you were.
Yeah.
Because you've been programmed all those years, like many of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For like to-do lists, the like grinding.
Yeah.
And that happened and it kind of like blank slate. You're like, I'm back to who I was before I was even here. Like when I was
like a kid. Yeah. And I was just feeling everything from this doesn't feel good. This feels good. And it was a way different way to operate because I didn't have the programming. So the only thing I could go with was what feels good, and hard for me to try to learn who everyone wanted me to be. That was really challenging. Like even my mom saying, call grandma, and I didn't feel that attachment to my family that people normally feel after surgery. It came back. Eventually I was like, oh, grandma, but initially after it was, this is a person with a title that I'm not connected to. And so I just didn't understand. I didn't have any attachments like that other than just, after the surgery, I was quite the puppy and I had to be walked and fed and all that stuff. So I had the attachment to like, this person takes care of me, but I didn't have that feeling of love, belonging, connection that we normally feel around family. And eventually, yeah, it came back. I noticed that when I went to, after a year of trying to remember, I just felt flooded. And I posted on Facebook saying, ask me to do anything and I'll do it. And I got a bunch of people saying like, oh, let's go to Africa or let's go travel or let's go do this and this. And then one person said Maui. And I asked, how's tomorrow? And then I just flew over and my life kind of got sorted. I had a dog and a best friend and ended up adopting her. And my job, I was in the burger restaurant and someone was mad at me over forgot to bring ranch. Like I was kind of spaced out. I like stood on the line and my sister was like, Amira, because I was one of the best servers before and I loved all the extra tables, extra hustle, extra money, whatever. And I was just standing on the line and like spacing out. And my sister came up to me and she's like, you do realize like you have to go, like people need stuff. Hello, like, are you there? And I just was like, I can't get myself to care. Like, this isn't a real problem. And my brain just couldn't compute this life, And so I just when I went to Maui, it gave me a sense of I can be whoever I want. And in that freedom later, like I spent a year in the jungle by myself without shoes, studying the brain too. But later, when I took all the pressure off of myself and my mom we went to Sweden and we walked through the neighborhoods and she had given up. She's like, Amira's probably never going to remember much. But we walked through and all of a sudden I just looked at her and said, I've been here before. We used to live there. And then our neighbor used to live right there. And we used to go sledding in the back. And so the memories just would flush in from different things that stimulated it, or I would hug someone and then the story of how I knew them would come. Like I wouldn't know who they are and then hug them and all of a sudden just be put in a movie of, oh, these are all the experiences I've had with this person. So it was a very different way to exist.
So you lived like an adventure after the brain surgery almost. Like it's a new way of living, a new way of feeling. The memories came back to you through emotion or feeling.
Yeah, emotion. Exactly. Yeah. It was locked. And then when there was no pressure, but the emotion would be felt or I would be somewhere, it was just so cool. Because then I would activate all these pathways. All of a sudden I was speaking Swedish and I was like, wait a second. I thought I didn't speak this, you know?
Such a fascinating story, Amira. And so my question too, I wanted to ask you in terms of how do you feel looking back in hindsight and going through that whole experience, what did it teach you and how does it make you feel today?
A bit limitless, because going through the experience, I felt like I didn't know when it would be over or, all of the different chapters didn't make so much sense, but I was just going by what felt good. And then to where I've gotten to now, especially with hypnotherapy too, I will not settle for anything. Like victory, they told me I had less than a 1% chance of coming back fully functioning and not being paralyzed from the waist down and just these crazy odds. And so when they told me that, I didn't buy it. And I think even in life now, we're constantly being confronted with, I think there's this pressure in the world to just stay in your box, just be who you've been, stay in your box. And, and it's kind of cool. It's became cool to just own your limits, own your little universe. And I just refuse. I'm constantly thinking, what else is possible? If I loved myself a little bit more, if I owned that my voice is worth sharing, what more could I do? And if I was a little bit more confident, what would I be willing to do? Instead of just because even hosting other people's events, that's it's a fun thing, but it's a little bit of hiding, And so eventually I was I'm drawn to these events and I love it. But if I was a little bit more proud of myself, what would I do? Or confident. And then I would host little workshops and it just kind of grew and it's still growing. But yeah, I think what it mainly taught me is a lot of what we're going through is temporary, everything kind of, I mean, people have some permanent things, but I've had Crohn's disease, brain surgery. I've had so much bullshit in my life. And I just don't think that we have to settle for whatever we think we're supposed to do. And I think what you guys are doing is powerful to just decide we're best friends. We love each other. We want to spend more time together and we want to cultivate something magical for women. And just, I mean, there's going to be so much resistance and so much doubt and all that stuff. But you just have to love the fuck out of yourself and just be I'll do it anyway.
So now what's next steps for you?
So I found this superpower thing with the hypnotherapy and helping people with that. Just been crazy because it is going into the subconscious mind and it's altering things that feel fixed, and you can everything's kind of not fixed is what I've learned with it. These deep rooted sabotage patterns or these deep rooted struggles or believed limitations or whatever, that it's actually healable, So for me, I've fallen in love with that. And now my excitement is in sharing it more. So I have some events coming up, but also just sharing that really freely. I just find myself at dinner with a friend and she's I'm struggling at sleeping. And I'm I know how to help with that. So we're going to do a session. And it's felt like this beautiful thing to just kind of give to my world. And so for me, that's where my heart is. Me and Mike have an event coming up in March, Warrior Retreat. And then, a retreat in Maui. We're going to probably plan a few more events this next year. I think it's just airing out whatever part of me is scared to show up, because when you start something new, it's a little weird. It's but then you hear stories of people who just started something and they had to push. Even Mike is such a story of that. He just pushed. He pushed for so long with this YouTube stuff. And then all of a sudden it worked,
Because he used to be a shy guy, right?
Yeah, it's wild. I can't even imagine that, but I know you've lived that. You've seen that. But it's absolutely wild that we can really do anything. And it's just, we're going to hit resistance. We're going to and we all do it. It doesn't matter who anyone is. At some point they're oh, I launched this book and no one bought it for a week or, whatever, being prepared and resilient in whatever we're creating. So for me, it's staying excited and staying resilient in all the new things that are coming up. And if I notice myself get scared to do something, like right now, we're supposed to do a hypnotherapy event live with all my friends, like a group one. I've been doing one-on-ones, but I'm going to do a group one and Mike's going to film it.
And the more you do that too, like I find that the more that we stretch ourselves, like you were saying, you know, what if I was a little bit more confident? How further can I push my limits? Right. And it's like, as you continue to stretch your comfort zone and you do those next levels of like putting yourself out there, you create space for you to also experience more. Where you become more limitless in the things that you can do. So that's super exciting. So you've gone through it from private one-on-one and you're about to do your first like live group sessions.
Yeah. I've like half-assed a few group sessions. I really think the magic happens one-on-one, but it is nice to put out offerings here and there that are accessible to like a bigger group of people. But yeah, I'm excited. Next one is the Warrior Retreat. Is in March 21 through 26 in Mexico. And then we have our next retreat on Maui, June 5 through 10. And and my Instagram handle is Traveler of Love.
Yeah. One question. Yeah. Crazy question.
I love that.
If you had a movie made about your life, what would it be called and who would play you?
Interesting.
I like that.
Wow. I think it would be called I think Limitless. And because I think that my story is crazy I used to be on a couch 3 months at a time, like going through Crohn's struggles and in and out of the hospital all the time. I feel like I've lived so many lives and I keep fighting limits still somehow, like even just in self-worth and in love, like when Mike showed up ready to love me. It's like, oh my God, scary. You're so sweet. I cannot receive all this right now. And so even in that, I had to ask myself, if I love myself a little bit more, would I receive this? And then work towards that. But I think that, it's just a limitless story. I don't know any actors, honestly. I don't watch much TV, so I don't know who would play me.
It would be Amira.
Limitless, starring Amira on the bridge. Buy your ticket now. I love it. And it's so inspiring. I think it can relate to a lot of women too. Like you said,
so many
limitless and, feeling that you don't deserve to be loved and all of that, like accept those things. When you love yourself, you can.
Yeah.
That's a good message.
I feel like it really is. And I feel like the biggest thing that I've taken from this conversation is something that I've learned is to constantly ask myself, if I were a little more confident, what could I achieve? If I love myself a little bit more, what could I openly receive? I love that perspective. And I've never heard that before. So thank you. Thank you, Amira.
And that's what we're working with a lot with the hypno stuff is there's an automatic setting. And it seems like, because it seems safer, it feels like it's the right option, whether it's in a disagreement, being right can feel safer, or if it's in business, staying small can feel safer. But it's questioning the voice, is this coming from the shrunken version of me, or is it coming from the me that I want to be? And if I believed in myself fully, because an exercise me and Mike do sometimes is this: if I continued making this choice or this bad habit, or if I did this bad pattern 20 years from now, what's the worst consequence of that? And 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what's the absolute worst consequence of if I kept this pattern up? And so if it's hiding in business, or if it's hiding in any area of your life, or if it's playing small, like it's hiding from love or hiding, whatever, it's just, where does that actually lead? I went on this bender where I followed what felt good, right? And so I became a traveler. And then I ran into trouble or disagreements, or even just the mildest energy changes, because I was a sensitive thing. And I would just fly somewhere else because I thought, well, this feels good, And so I think that it was a good system for me then to be, okay, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. What I find now is most people's negative scripts are louder than the positive ones. And so when those signals come up, I would not just trust them, because that signal of what feels good would have it's just not a life that agrees with like my values. So I guess the way that I would do it is write down, put it on paper. Who do I want to be? And what does this person care about? What are my values? What are like even just the most basic details of like, and so when I run into these questions of what should I do in this department, whether it be friendship, relationship, work, life, whatever, I just try to go back to that page. Obviously not in the moment. We all get triggered and it's not cute, but we're like, but later, when I'm making the big decisions, then I'll go back to this paper of like, who am I and what do I care about? And does this align with this? And what is my purpose? Like really just doing one deep meditation and write down your purpose. And then when you run into the fear, because the fear is louder and it's constantly like signaling like, no, stop, hide, safety. And so, but it can be trained to be quieter. Put it on paper, like get yourself really clear one day, have a ceremony, light some candles and really like put it on paper, who you want to be, what you care about, and then ask yourself, what would a person that has all of this do right now, And so with I didn't want to market, that was a huge block for me. I didn't want to sell online. And so but I had to go to that future self that's already created all this and ask her, what should I do? Because it feels really good to not. I wrote down these things that matter and certain values of like, I will do whatever it takes to share my purpose. And so would this person learn to market? Probably, I don't want to do it, but I would have to learn to do that or hire someone to do it or whatever. And the same thing in conflicts with like friends or relationships or life or, it's just, am I the type of person that just, moves away because I'm stressed? Or am I the type of person that has these values and navigates things in a more calm, beautiful way? And I don't know, I would just keep going back to the paper because we get hijacked. And so I wouldn't say just follow what feels good, because I think that the signals are not always the best.
Yep. Yeah. It's really getting clear, right? On you want to be and where you want to be in your future self or your life. And I feel like that's where manifestations come in. And that's where we as spiritual beings need to really sit with our intuition and our gut and write those things down for sure. I love that. I like to think I'm a dreamer, but we did one thing one day, like it was back in April. We wrote down all of the things that we wanted to let go of. Yeah. We're like, we're going to go burn this. So we went outside and burned it and we recorded ourselves doing this whole ceremony. And it was awesome. You're right. You were a dreamer. So you think you do a lot of that manifestation and becoming and stuff in your mind. Whereas for me, visually, I'll write the story. So it's like, if I value this, this, and this is what I desire to step into, what behaviors, what habits, what patterns does she embody as she's doing it? And then it's being that every day to stepping into that, right?
Yeah. With anything, it's like falling in love with where you're going and who you're helping. I think something that, and it works just as well with a paper or with just a feeling, because you can create the feeling of who you want to be and then you can go there and then, but I think falling in love with where you're going and in helping like the version of you even 10 years ago, that didn't know the things, and then, or 20 years ago, or there's just certain insights and access, and all of our experiences gives us a certain access to the world. So for me, I think, purpose is about service and also revealing ourselves. Really showing the whole human experience, because everyone's sitting in their, behind their screens feeling not enough. Like that one's doing it cooler, that one's doing it better, or I'm not as this or as that. And so when we reveal ourselves and we're like, just like you, we're all going through it, and it's not easy.
You are so inspiring, honorary member of our Soul Sister community. This was amazing.
I love this.
Yeah. Thank you for shining your light and helping other women too, and doing what you do and following your purpose, staying true to you. That's important.
Hey, Soul Sister, before you go, we want to share something with you. We believe that every woman has a story worth sharing and a voice worth hearing, and we'd love to hear yours. Share your personal breakthroughs, challenges, and journey with us by applying to be featured on our podcast, speaking events, or future publications. Want to join the movement? You can help us reach more women like you by leaving a review, subscribing, or sharing it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. You can catch us on all our socials and stay up to date on the fun to come. Remember, Soul Sister, together we rise.